Tfight 305, newest release. They changed the balance point, they changed the swing wave. I would say they made, how you call it, a small cat move, because I think they moved the balance point slightly too low. They shifted the wave distribution towards the other spectrum of rackets, I would say. So yeah, from one extreme to another extreme. But yeah, let's go to the review. And by the way, as I was working in the music industry for like 6-7 years, I decided to help some indie bands, indie artists that deserve a bit bigger attention, in my opinion. So Evergreen, show them some love. Yeah, let's go to the review.
Settle for a second after every line. Travel as the heart does, one beat at a time. I got all that I wanted now. Get me back above the ground. Show me something I have never found. Make it matter, make it count. Blow my mind again, again, again. Get me back above the ground. Show me something I have never found. Make it matter, make it count. Blow my mind again, again, again.
So yeah, the update here is quite comparable, but let's start with the reason why, okay? Tecnifibre team basically noticed that the next gen players are ripping the ball more than guiding, and it's a play style and swing style, okay? So you can achieve similar things in different ways. You can either achieve power and connection through the guiding motion, so you have slightly bigger loop and you extend through. The swing is a bit slower, but the connection through the ball is 10 out of 10. Or you can accelerate more, get more power, more spin, more heavy ball through just this very rapid motion, okay? They noticed that the next gen players are playing with a lighter specs, so they can move the wrist much faster. And they made the change, they made the call. So again, are you a person who is guiding through the ball, or maybe you're ripping the ball, right? If you're a person that prefers to rip the ball, fast strokes, new Tfight will be a great choice. The previous edition, definitely different direction. I rely a lot on my backhand on this guiding motion, and on forehand it depends. I would say on ground strokes I focus a lot on this guiding as well, but as soon as I kinda catch the ball, I try to accelerate through the wrist to get the connection, spin, control, right? I need the feel that I'm guiding the ball, but the racket must be fast enough so I can kinda counterattack from defensive situations and use opponent's force against him, right? So that's the tricky part of finding this balance. So in theory, the main reason why they changed the specs is the general feedback from the people was that the previous edition was slightly too demanding, too heavy to use, too head heavy, and yeah, probably the most traditional racket in a sense of head heavy balance paired with a higher swing wave. So yeah, it is a bit tricky. Mine came a bit better because it was around 32.2 centimeters balance, so slightly more headlight, but yeah, still quite demanding, and yeah, the wave distribution quite challenging. But here comes the update, right? And it is much easier to use. And the first question that comes to head is, okay, will it give me enough plow through? And will it give me enough stability, right? So the first impression is that it gives me the stability, definitely. It feels very familiar, like it feels like a faster Tfight 305 from the previous years. When it comes to the connection to the ball, performance, slightly different, but basically very, very, very similar. Change in specs, what it gave me, okay? So definitely faster, and it is a good thing. It is still a very stable racket. I am surprised. I really didn't need any more stability. It's a great thing. And now the last thing, plow through. And to be honest, I think that from the previous edition, I had a much better plow through, obviously. But the previous edition maybe was still a bit too demanding, and this one is probably too light. So now I'm on a mission. I'm trying to find something in the middle. Might be tricky. I might stick to the older edition, but I prefer the easiness of the newest edition. Tecnifibre did split the players into two groups. Those who are ripping the ball, those who are guiding the ball. Very interesting concept. In theory, next-gen players are ripping the ball like crazy, right? But here is the problem. If you are a person that is ripping the ball, you better rip the ball every time, because you play most likely, and according to Tecnifibre team, you play with a much lighter specs. So if you don't accelerate your wrist, you will be in problem. Not enough plow through, not enough power, so you have to compensate this lack of plow through your acceleration. So that is the trade that the next gen players have to make. Another interesting thing is that Tecnifibre said in the past, when the brands were customizing the rackets for the players, basically it was about finding the specs for the player. And the modern way of customizing the specs is, okay, what do you want? But keep in mind, you will be playing against this or that player, right? And this player hits very fast, right? So they can't just give the player a heavy racket because the player feels the most natural with a heavy racket. The player needs faster frame because the ball going his direction is very fast, so he needs time, right? And yeah, fighting against the time, that's the biggest challenge in modern tennis. So me, myself, I am definitely guiding the ball more, especially on backhands. And Tecnifibre mentioned that they wanted to give something in between. On forehands, something very fast that you can accelerate and rip the ball. On backhand, still the guiding feel. So I think they did a great job. I would say yes. On backhand, I was still feeling connected and this guiding through the ball was there. On forehand, it was definitely easier to rip the ball, but one thing is missing here, okay? I would say next-gen players, if they play with lower specs, and in general, yes, they also play with a 16-19 string pattern, and here it is 18-19 string pattern. This pattern and closed patterns in general needs a bit more plow through to shine. It's about guiding the ball, it's about court penetration, not so much about spin or heaviness. You should just, be very precise with ball placement and hit it every time. And guiding the ball, hitting through the ball is a bit easier to feel that. And when you rip it with your wrist, sometimes, yeah. So with 18-19, you don't get that much reward for ripping the ball, because the string pattern is not as spin friendly, right? So I would say the specs should be for the Tfight 300S that Iga Świątek is endorsing. Here I would expect a slightly higher swing wave or maybe heavier balance. Tfight 305, especially the previous edition, was a racket, I would say, for Speed Pro users, Blade and Blade Pro. Compared to the Blade and Blade Pro, this one was slightly more forgiving, more spin potential and maybe more power, because 18-19 string pattern, right? Compared to the Speed Pro, you have a bit better connection because the head size is smaller and a bit more control, but still 18-19 compared to 18-20 gives me this sense of better spin potential actually. So this racket was a solution for those type of fan base, right? And it was giving me a specific solution to specific issue, like Speed Pro, not enough spin potential, and the connection maybe wasn't quite there compared to the blade. A bit more spin potential again, maybe a bit more power. The frames I mentioned, they are quite specific on their own, right? So that's why the general fan base for all those rackets is quite small. So it makes sense that Tecnifibre team decided to catch a bit wider group of players. Shifted the balance, and I would say it opened the gates for extreme pro users, eZone 98, maybe Radical MP. But the biggest difference now is the string pattern, right? 16-19, more spin. 18-19, more control, more connection, but the spin is just smaller. So I think basically the main racket that Tecnifibre tries to counterattack is probably this. Babolat Pure Aero 98, 1620, so slightly better spin potential, but now very similar specs towards this group of player, but offering you a bit lower launch angle, a bit better court penetration, but yeah, you have to drop some spin potential, right? So always something for something. If I hold the rackets, I still feel that Tfight is a more classic racket, so it's a positive thing. But yeah, I think it is slightly in between two worlds. 16-19 next gen rackets and 18-19, 18-20 classic rackets, or even those modern rackets like Speed Pro. So basically the main traits that the Tfight wants to offer is power and control. Now also acceleration. But for me, I was not fast enough with the racket to add more power. So I kinda need to add more mass to the racket to get more power, and I am still okay with a slightly slower racket because I can't use it in stock form as fast to compensate the lack in power or penetration. Maybe that's the better word, because the power is still there, it's just lack of penetration. I tried adding some mass like 2 grams, 1 gram at the top, and it didn't work because it changed kind of the DNA of the racket. The head was kicking up like too aggressively, and it was trying to be a spin-oriented racket, and it is not a spin-oriented racket, right? So yeah, now I'm experimenting with some mass at 10 and 2 to see if I can find the plow-through, basically, to unlock this guiding motion even on my forehand, but keep this little margin compared to the Tfight 305 from the previous edition. And if I find it, it's an easy switch. And in general, I would say it should be possible to achieve, and I'm just looking for this specific place. I want to make the frame a bit heavier in feel without changing the overall DNA of the racket, because in stock form the DNA is there, the connection is there, spin potential for a counter-oriented racket is perfect. So yeah, now it's just finding the fluidity. Because the string pattern is a bit more closed on defense, it was just too hard to rip the ball, right? I need the fluidity and this timing of the bounce and counter-attack and use opponent's power against him. And yeah, with this racket I just wasn't ripping fast enough on those very defensive situations, and the racket wasn't giving me enough plow-through to hit it back deep. That's why I think the only solution is to kick up this swing wave a little bit to keep the fluidity, a bit more stability, plow through, and yeah, with that I think my defensive counterattacks should be much better. So we'll see, part 2, working on it right now. Guys, subscribe if you can, it helps me a lot, show some love to the artists, and see you soon. Bye bye.